My name is Bruce Wall, and I live in Orange County, California. I grew up in Whittier, California, and at that time it was in the late 60s, and it was very drug-oriented in the city that I lived in. And so at an early age I started using drugs, and smoking and drinking and getting in trouble, and influenced by friends and, you know, the neighborhood kids that I would hang out with. And so it wasn't all their fault, it was somewhat my fault as well. But I started out smoking marijuana and drinking and smoking, and I eventually got into using heroin and stuff like that. And I started that when I was 14. And I'd been arrested quite a few times, probably about 16 times by the time I was 16 years old. Then I was taken away from my home, and I was I guess you'd say, sent away to a camp. And it was a Camp Gonzales in Malibu Canyon. And I did 6 months there. I actually got hepatitis when I was in the camp from using the heroin. And then I got well from that, and I got out, and I got arrested a bunch more times between the ages of 16 and 18, probably. I think it was 11 times, and then I became an adult. I was 18. I spent my 18th birthday in juvenile hall, and that was in Downey, California. And so then I went to LA County Jail several times after I was 18 and experienced the adult side of the criminal prosecution arena. And I eventually moved to Florida because my parents had my dad got a job offer, so I moved, and my parents were hoping that I would get away from the drugs and clean up my act when I got out there. So I was 19. I got there and I got arrested probably about 30 days after I was there. And
was it for drug use, or?
I was doing mushrooms. They weren't illegal at that time, and I had never done them. They weren't really in California, so it was kind of a thing because they were growing in the cow pastures in Florida. You would go out and I would actually pick them. And so then got arrested a couple more times. Within the next year, got arrested for under 5 grams of marijuana, which was a misdemeanor. And because of my past history, I was facing going to the prison farm. That's what the attorney told me. So I volunteered to go into a halfway house to avoid going to the prison farm. So I went to a halfway house, which is kind of like a drug rehabilitation place. And it basically, I just turned that into a whole party scene. It was like having my own apartment. And, I did a lot of, you could do a whole movie on what I did at that halfway house. We were shooting drugs and drinking and partying and alcohol and girls, and just, you know, was in Daytona Beach. And I graduated with honors, believe it or not, from that place in 1974, I believe it was. And then in 1975, I was a drug dealer pretty much most of my life, off and on, but I got really heavily involved into some bigger quantities, and I flew to Detroit to get an ounce of heroin, and I came back with $250,000 worth of angel dust, or PCP, and I was caught by the FBI in Daytona Beach. and that's kind of a long story about the whole arrest and all that stuff. But I basically kind of woke up after that incident. Mostly, I guess you'd say a spiritual experience. And so I spent the next year kind of cleaning up my act. They wanted to basically use me and turn me into a snitch, which I didn't want to do, but I said I would, but then I really wasn't going to. And then I left, jumped on a plane and left the state of Florida to avoid prosecution. Came back to California, and I did straighten up my life. And I kind of, I quit smoking, I quit drinking, I started going to church. It was kind of like a spiritual awakening. And then I was working in a health club for my brother, and I began to study health and learn about herbs and natural foods and organic foods and so forth. And so it was just a long quest of, I've been a musician. I currently am a musician now, professional. And I started going to college and as a music major when I got back to California. And in the process of studying the music, the only class that I ever took besides music courses was a nutrition class. And the nutrition class was kind of real, watered down, kind of like, I was kind of hardcore into organic stuff at that time. And the teachers that taught, I was doing raw milk and stuff at that time. That was like in '77, and nobody else was really doing that. She thought I was crazy for drinking raw milk. Like, what are you, nuts? You want to get sick? You want to die? You got to drink pasteurized milk. But so then, and I stopped eating meat in 1974. I was working with a singer in Daytona Beach during my drug years, and he questioned me like, "What are you doing eating meat?" And I didn't know there was anything wrong with it, and he started telling me about uric acid and the hormones and the drugs that were used in the animals, and it just kind of woke me up, and I just said, okay, I didn't know there was anything wrong with it, so I stopped eating meat. I stopped eating meat then, and so then in '78, when I was taking that nutrition class, I started eating organic foods at that time. I started getting more books. 1985, I was feeling lack of energy, and I had some blood tests done, and I decided to stop drinking alcohol at that time. And I got turned on to a book, or through a friend, Fit for Life by Harvey Diamond, and kind of opened up the whole prospect of food combining and this thing called natural hygiene. So I became a member of the Natural Hygiene Society, and I was getting all their literature. I started studying all the books, Herbert Shelton, T.C. Fry, Ralph St. Kay, all these guys that were doing it at that time, and immersed myself into that, and went to events that they would put on and so forth. And so they would teach raw foods somewhat, it wasn't all about raw foods and natural hygiene. But in 1989, I had studied so much, and I had done everything. I had fasted, I had done all these things, and I wanted to keep cleaning and cleansing myself and getting back to nature and being in touch with my intuition and knowing what to eat just by intuition, And to me, it was all about fruit, mostly, It seemed to me that it was a natural thing to pick something off a tree and eat it, or pick it out of the ground. And so 1989, I did a year, 100% raw, and nobody else was doing that. I didn't know anybody else that was doing it except me. I had one friend that kind of I met through a music store that was doing it also. And then I went back to some steamed veggies and stuff like that after that year. And then in 1999, David Wolf came out with his book, Nature's First Law. And in Orange County, the whole raw food movement just started escalating and getting more popular and more popular. So I met a friend, Lou Corona, and we started hanging out together, and he's a health educator. And we started going to a lot of different events and stuff, and it was really easy for me to go back into the raw thing because I'd already done it. So I started doing it then and been raw ever since. And you know, it's been 15 years, so organic, raw, and feeling better, and just still playing guitar and playing music and staying out of trouble, and it just keeps getting better and better as life goes on, and just keep being awakened to new avenues that you never knew existed. It's just like that onion where you keep peeling away the layers, you know. And so I think that raw food is because of the higher energy that you are exposed to by doing that. You just can't help but to experience and attract higher energy things in your life, you know, people and events, and just the mindset and where you're, you know, how you're thinking. So that's where I'm at today.
What do you currently do now? You're a musician?
Yeah, I have 2 CDs out. I have a website, brucewall.net, and I've toured Asia since 2003. I was going like every 6 months. I was going to Asia. Basically, I'm a professional musician. I do trying to write for film and TV mostly now, but I do some live performances, and I play Latin music. I do smooth jazz. Is kind of the Latin smooth jazz is kind of like my thing that I mostly do. I've done lots of rock and roll gigs and throughout the years, and so that's what I do for a living, and just keep the music alive. And I believe that music is a divine gift, and I am very honored to be gifted to be able to share my music with the world, because I do compose and usually write a lot of my own stuff, and where I arrange other people's songs and redo them and stuff like that. So I'm just always inspired to make music. I have since I was 10 years old, so that's what I do. So thank you for listening and for having me on your show, and appreciate it, Farah.